right, this is the last section of Chapter 6, where we're going to be looking at the early societies of the people in Oceania. Specifically, that's going to refer to the Pacific Islands, New Guinea, and Australia. So what do we know? Well, we know, first of all, that we see African migration, people from who had populated the continent of Africa, making their way across the Middle East through India, the Pacific Islands, and eventually migrating into Australia. There were two waves of these folks, the first occurring about 45,000 years ago, and a second wave occurring about 4,200 years ago. What's important to understand is one of the unique features of the people who migrated to Australia, who are now called Aborigines, was that there we see hunting and gathering society continue up until the 19th and 20th century, when Australia is colonized by Great Britain. The reason why is that the environment of Australia is not particularly hospitable to agriculture. As you know, you might have heard of the outback, and we're talking about massive desert regions, very hot. It's in some ways not unlike trying to farm in the Sahara. Very, very difficult, which is why, again, the Aborigines continue with that hunting-gathering society. But at the same time, because they didn't adopt agriculture, we see a lot of the technological, cultural developments that we see in other civilizations that do adopt agriculture not occurring with the Aborigines, for better or for worse. By contrast, in New Guinea, by the way, being here, right here, we do see agriculture occurring. Just that little bit of difference in terms of geographical placement. New Guinea much more hospitable to agriculture, and we see fairly significant divergence in cultural development. So what do we know about these folks from New Guinea? First is that unlike Australia, where you see the continent being populated by people from Africa, New Guinea, we see the islands being populated by people from Southeast Asia, who, as you can see through this map, move from Southeast Asia and very slowly spread to all these Pacific islands over time. You'll notice that it takes quite a while, thousands of years, to migrate to places like Easter Island and the Hawaiian Islands because of their geographic remoteness. But significantly, these islands are all ultimately populated by human beings. In New Guinea, we see the cultivation of root crops and herding animals, domestication of animals, and agricultural society like we've seen in the other societies that we've looked at. And these domesticated animals, these root crops, those become staples throughout most, if not all, of these Pacific islands that these peoples migrate to. How do they get from place to place? Well, we have these outrigger canoes, and you'll notice here is an example of an outrigger canoe. You notice you have a hollowed out canoe, but you have these two ballasts on either side that are meant for stabilization, plus a simple sail. This adds speed to the craft, but also stability as it is able to go through the waves. That's how they're able to go from place to place safely. And significant for this is this allows Pacific Islanders to establish communication and trade networks. This allows them, again, to kind of spread their way of life throughout these Pacific Islands, which are oftentimes very geographically remote. And our last slide. So as I've pointed out, these are geographically widespread, requiring the development of trade networks and communication networks through sea trading. There are some elements that we've seen that are like other cultures. First is that their political leaders are seen as divine or semi-divine. This is not unlike what we see in Egypt with the pharaohs, and China if you think about the mandate of heaven. The pharaohs certainly seen as divine, and the heads of the Chinese dynasties are seen as semi-divine, as having God's favor. And again, the last thing to point out is the Pacific Island culture versus the Australian culture. We see radically divergent development in large part as a result of geography and climate. So with that, we're going to end Chapter 6. We'll pick up with Chapter 7, where we'll be looking at the empires of Persia. Thanks for watching. Bye.